Have you ever wondered why one gardener harvests onions the size of baseballs while another grows bulbs barely larger than golf balls, even when both use the same variety and plant them on the same day? The answer isn't a secret fertilizer, an expensive product, or a miracle gardening trick. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes gardeners make is believing that adding more fertilizer automatically produces bigger onions. It doesn't. More fertilizer often creates lush green leaves but disappointingly small bulbs. The real secret is much simpler. Large onions come from feeding the plant the right nutrients at exactly the right stage of growth. Every phase of the onion's life has different nutritional needs, and understanding this timing can dramatically improve your harvest. Today, we're going to explore proven methods used by experienced home gardeners and commercial onion growers alike. We'll explain exactly what onions need, when they need it, and how to avoid the common mistakes that keep bulbs small year after year. By the end of this video, you'll know how to build fertile soil, choose the right fertilizer, recognize nutrient deficiencies, water correctly, and create the ideal growing conditions for consistently producing large, healthy onions. Let's begin by understanding how onions actually grow. Many people think the onion bulb is simply the root getting bigger. Surprisingly, that's not true at all. The bulb is actually made from swollen leaf bases that store carbohydrates and nutrients. The roots remain relatively small throughout the season, while the underground bulb develops as the plant redirects energy from leaf growth into storage. That means every healthy green leaf matters. Here's an interesting fact: each healthy leaf produced before bulbing contributes another ring inside the finished onion. More healthy leaves before bulb formation generally mean larger bulbs later. This is why early nutrition is so important. Onions have shallow root systems compared with many vegetables. Most roots remain within the top several inches of soil, making them especially dependent on consistent soil fertility and moisture. Unlike deep-rooted crops that can search for nutrients far below the surface, onions rely heavily on what is available near their roots. If nutrients or water become unavailable, growth slows quickly. This is why preparing the soil before planting is one of the most valuable investments you can make. Good onion soil is loose, well-drained, rich in organic matter, and free of compaction. Heavy clay restricts root growth. Extremely sandy soils drain nutrients too quickly. The ideal soil contains plenty of organic matter that improves both drainage and water retention, while feeding beneficial soil organisms. Adding finished compost before planting is one of the best long-term improvements you can make. Compost doesn't act like a fast fertilizer. Instead, it steadily improves soil structure, microbial activity, moisture retention, and nutrient availability throughout the growing season. Commercial growers understand that soil health often determines yield long before fertilizer is applied. Another factor many gardeners overlook is soil pH. Onions generally perform best in slightly acidic to neutral soil, roughly between pH 6.0 and 7.0. Within this range, nutrients remain available for uptake. If the soil becomes too acidic or too alkaline, important nutrients may become difficult for the plant to absorb even if they're present in large quantities. Many gardeners continue adding fertilizer without realizing the real problem is poor nutrient availability caused by improper pH. Testing soil every few years provides valuable information and helps avoid unnecessary fertilizer applications. Now let's discuss the nutrients themselves. Nitrogen is usually the first nutrient gardeners think about. Nitrogen drives leafy growth. Since each healthy leaf contributes to bulb development, onions need adequate nitrogen early in the season. Young onions should produce vigorous, upright, dark green leaves without becoming excessively lush. Too little nitrogen results in pale leaves, slow growth, and reduced bulb size. However, applying nitrogen throughout the entire season is one of the biggest mistakes gardeners make. Once bulb formation begins, excessive nitrogen encourages the plant to keep producing leaves. instead of directing energy into enlarging the bulb. Experienced growers intentionally reduce or stop nitrogen applications once bulbing starts. Timing makes all the difference. Instead of thinking about how much nitrogen to apply, think about when to stop applying it. This single adjustment often produces noticeably larger onions. Phosphorus plays a different role. Rather than stimulating leafy growth, phosphorus supports strong root development, energy transfer, and early plant establishment. Healthy roots allow onions to absorb water and nutrients more efficiently throughout the season. Phosphorus works best when incorporated into the soil before planting because it moves very slowly through the ground. Potassium becomes increasingly important as bulbs enlarge. Potassium helps regulate water movement within the plant, improves stress tolerance, strengthens tissues, and supports carbohydrate transport into the bulb. Adequate potassium often improves bulb quality, storage life, and overall harvest. Gardeners sometimes overlook sulfur, yet onions are surprisingly heavy sulfur users. Sulfur contributes to protein formation and produces many of the characteristic onion flavors and aromas we associate with healthy bulbs. Insufficient sulfur can reduce flavor intensity and overall plant vigor. Fortunately, many organic materials and balanced fertilizers naturally provide sulfur. Calcium also deserves attention. Although onions require smaller amounts than nitrogen or potassium, calcium supports healthy cell walls, root development, and overall plant strength. Low calcium availability sometimes occurs not because the soil lacks calcium but because inconsistent watering prevents proper uptake. This highlights an important principle. Nutrition and watering always work together. Even perfectly fertilized onions cannot develop properly if watering is inconsistent. Magnesium forms the central component of chlorophyll, allowing leaves to capture sunlight efficiently. Without adequate magnesium, photosynthesis declines, reducing the energy available for bulb growth. Micronutrients such as boron, zinc, manganese, copper, iron, and molybdenum are needed only in tiny amounts but remain essential for healthy plant development. Fortunately, healthy garden soil enriched with organic matter usually supplies sufficient micronutrients for onions. Now let's compare organic and synthetic fertilizers. Many gardeners wonder which approach produces bigger onions. The truth is that both can produce excellent harvests when used correctly. Organic fertilizers release nutrients gradually as soil microorganisms break them down. Examples include compost, well-rotted manure, fish emulsion, compost tea, seaweed extracts, feather meal, blood meal, bone meal, and various plant-based amendments. Their greatest advantage is that they improve soil health while feeding plants. Over time, they build better soil structure, increase microbial diversity, and enhance moisture retention. Their main limitation is slower nutrient release, which depends on soil temperature and biological activity. Synthetic fertilizers provide nutrients in readily available forms that plants can absorb quickly. This allows growers to correct deficiencies rapidly and precisely manage nutrient timing. However, synthetic fertilizers contribute little to improving soil structure and must be applied carefully to avoid overfertilization. Many experienced gardeners successfully combine both approaches. They build fertile soil with compost and organic matter while using carefully timed supplemental fertilizers only when needed. Let's look more closely at several popular organic fertilizers. Finished compost is the foundation. Apply generous amounts before planting and mix it thoroughly into the soil. Avoid using unfinished compost because it may temporarily tie up nitrogen during decomposition. Well-rotted manure also supplies valuable nutrients and organic matter. Fresh manure should never be applied immediately before planting onions because it may introduce excessive nitrogen, weed seeds, or harmful pathogens. Instead, use manure that has fully decomposed or apply fresh manure many months before planting. Fish emulsion provides an excellent early-season nitrogen boost. Because it acts relatively quickly, it's especially useful during the period of active leaf growth. Seaweed extracts contain small amounts of nutrients along with naturally occurring compounds that may help plants tolerate environmental stress. Although seaweed alone won't supply all required nutrients, it complements a balanced fertilization program. Compost tea is often used as a supplemental soil drench. While its nutrient content varies depending on preparation, many gardeners value it for supporting soil microbial activity rather than serving as a primary fertilizer. Wood ash deserves special mention. It contains potassium and calcium but also raises soil pH. For acidic soils needing additional potassium, modest applications may be helpful. However, excessive wood ash can make soil too alkaline, reducing nutrient availability. This is why soil testing remains so valuable before making large applications. Now let's discuss one of the most overlooked factors affecting onion size: water. Even perfect nutrition cannot compensate for poor watering. Onions require consistently moist soil throughout active growth. Repeated cycles of drought followed by heavy watering place plants under stress. During dry periods, growth slows dramatically. When watering resumes, plants recover slowly, losing valuable growing time. Consistent moisture encourages uninterrupted leaf production and steady bulb enlargement. However, constantly saturated soil is equally harmful. Waterlogged soil limits oxygen around the roots, reducing nutrient uptake and increasing disease risk. The goal is evenly moist, not soggy, soil. Mulching around onions with clean straw or other suitable organic mulch can help conserve moisture, moderate soil temperature, and reduce weed competition. Speaking of weeds, they are far more damaging to onions than many gardeners realize. Because onions have shallow roots and narrow leaves, they compete poorly against aggressive weeds. Even moderate weed pressure can significantly reduce bulb size by stealing sunlight, water, and nutrients. Keeping onion beds weed-free throughout the season often produces larger harvest improvements than adding extra fertilizer. Another important factor is spacing. Many gardeners simply plant onions too close together. Crowded plants compete for light, nutrients, moisture, and growing space. Even perfectly fertilized onions cannot develop maximum-sized bulbs if they lack room. Different varieties require different spacing, but allowing adequate distance between plants gives each onion sufficient resources to reach its potential. Sunlight also plays an essential role. Onions grow best in full sun, receiving at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight daily. Reduced sunlight limits photosynthesis, decreasing the energy available for bulb formation. Here's another fascinating fact. Bulb formation isn't controlled only by nutrition. It's also triggered by day length. Different onion varieties begin forming bulbs after reaching specific daylight durations. This is why choosing the correct long day, intermediate day, or short day variety for your region is just as important as proper fertilization. Even perfect feeding cannot overcome planting the wrong onion type for your latitude. Let's talk about recognizing nutrient deficiencies before they seriously reduce yields. Nitrogen deficiency often appears as pale green or yellow older leaves accompanied by slow overall growth. Phosphorus deficiency may reduce vigor and produce weak root systems, although visible. Symptoms are sometimes subtle. Potassium deficiency can cause yellowing or browning along leaf edges. Magnesium deficiency often produces yellowing between leaf veins while the veins remain greener. Sulfur deficiency may resemble nitrogen deficiency but usually appears first on younger leaves. Because sulfur moves differently within the plant. Remember that symptoms alone cannot diagnose every problem. Poor drainage, compacted soil, root diseases, and improper watering may produce similar appearances. Observing the entire plant and considering growing conditions usually provides the most accurate diagnosis. Commercial growers regularly monitor fields instead of waiting for severe deficiencies to develop. Early correction always produces better results than attempting rescue treatments after growth has already slowed. Now let's review the most common fertilizing mistakes. Applying excessive nitrogen throughout the season. Ignoring soil preparation before planting. Failing to test soil pH. Using fresh manure immediately before planting. Allowing weeds to compete with onions. Overwatering or underwatering. Planting onions too closely together. Expecting fertilizer to compensate for inadequate sunlight. Using high fertilizer rates without understanding actual soil fertility. Each of these mistakes limits bulb size regardless of how much fertilizer is applied. Experienced growers understand that large onions result from balancing every aspect of cultivation, rather than focusing on one product. Here's a practical feeding strategy that reflects established horticultural practice. Begin with fertile, compost-enriched soil before planting. Provide sufficient nitrogen during early leaf development. Ensure phosphorus is available for root establishment. Maintain balanced nutrition throughout active growth. Reduce and eventually stop nitrogen once bulbs begin enlarging. Continue consistent watering while avoiding waterlogging. Keep weeds under control. Allow adequate spacing. Harvest only after bulbs mature naturally. None of these steps is complicated. The real advantage comes from doing each one at the proper time. Perhaps the biggest lesson experienced onion growers have learned is that growing giant onions isn't about chasing miracle products. It's about understanding the biology of the plant. Healthy leaves build the bulb. Healthy roots support the leaves. Healthy soil supports the roots. Everything works together. When gardeners focus only on fertilizer bags, they often overlook the factors that matter just as much: soil structure, moisture, spacing, sunlight, and timing. Master these fundamentals, and you'll consistently harvest larger onions with better flavor, stronger storage quality, and healthier plants year after year. So before your next growing season begins, remember these simple principles. Feed the soil before feeding the plant. Build strong leaves early. Provide balanced nutrition instead of excessive fertilizer. Stop nitrogen when bulbs begin forming. Keep moisture consistent. Protect onions from weeds. Give every plant enough space and plenty of sunlight. When all these pieces come together, the results are remarkable not because of a miracle fertilizer, but because you've worked with the natural biology of the onion from planting day all the way to harvest. And that's exactly how experienced gardeners and professional growers consistently produce the large, healthy onion bulbs that fill baskets, store well through winter, and make every season in the garden more rewarding.